Yeah, I would have making comments was directing it towards the board member and kind of getting a little personal. So the president, which as the ability to message wrong, right? I just don't recall.
Yeah.
Approving their rights.
Is that a bit messy?
It's in the courts.
Okay. But we'll try not to do that. Okay, so it's 7 o'clock and here we go. So welcome to the Van Buren Local School Board of Education meeting, Thursday, March the 17th, 2022. And we are calling it to order now. And I want to welcome everyone that has come and those of you that might be listening and live streaming. And we're going to start with the roll call.
Mr. Fisher?
Here.
Mr. Lightfoot?
Here.
Ms. Thomas? Here. Ms. Zebright? Here. Ms. Williams?
Here. Go to a silence and pledge of allegiance led by Ms. Kim Thomas.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So next is to approve the agenda with the adjustments.
May ask that items 3 and 4 just be voted separate under the superintendent's recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
So the motion is to approve the agenda with the adjustments of number 3 and number 4 being separated under the superintendent's recommendation. Any questions, debate around that? Would you like to call the roll?
Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Lightfoot?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas? Yes. Ms. Zebright?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes. And that motion to approve the agenda with those adjustments has passed. On to old business, and this is a little, I will try to explain this as much as I can. So in the February board meeting, the resolution number 22-019, which was to employ personnel for 2021-2022 school year as an approved 2 extra supplemental positions as follows. It's 2 baseball JV coach and 4 JV coaches for softball. It was under superintendent recommendation. It was voted 3-1 and said that it was approved, or said that it was failed. And it can't be failed because it was under superintendent's recommendation. We need 4 board members. We only have 3 for that vote, so that is not correct in the minutes. So we need to make some adjustments to address that. So we can vote to rescind it and revote. We can not do anything, and it stands as the contract has passed. That makes sense to everybody. Okay, so do we have a motion to rescind the
I'll make the motion.
resolution? Okay, so Andy makes the first motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. So we have Kim seconding, and the motion is a resolution to rescind resolution number 22-019. Conversations, discussions.
Yeah, I just want to rehash what I said last time was the fact that after looking at the provided supplemental contracts, it did not essentially be in there when they were negotiated upon. I felt it was the responsibility of the AD to bring it to the athletic committee to discuss if there was going to be additional, or at least provide it in his report, which if I recall that month, there was not a report. And I want to emphasize that I'm not against doing that. I think our coaches are fantastic here. I think if it's necessary, we should do it. But I think the board, or at least the committee, should have an opportunity to ask those questions and make a recommendation to the board.
So my question is, did that happen since the last board
No.
meeting? So we left the board meeting with the understanding that that was going to happen for the next board meeting, or at least at some point in time, because if we need those coaches, we need it now, not April.
Well, the coaches are out there. It's not the fact that they're not out there. It's the fact that they're not getting an additional pay.
Well, it means that their commitment is reduced. They don't have to do the extra JV games.
I would argue I've been to each one. Those coaches are highly committed regardless if you pay them or not.
I think the point that I brought up last time and I asked Dawn was if the supplementary positions had been budgeted into the budget for this school year, and she had said no. And that to me is if, you know, I know sports come up and I know that we always have sports. Sometimes we might not know how many students are going to participate, but we have to make sure that we're responsible in what we have budgeted and what we're using.
So do. No.
No.
Okay, so do we have any recommendations on what to do with the coaches that are now quote volunteering with the thought that they were getting paid?
Well, I don't believe, if I remember correctly, none of, or not, I wouldn't say none of them because they're itemized out that they're volunteering. They were taking the softball, I'm gonna use softball just by memory, and if I had the minutes, but 4 of them were taking a quarter of the pay of the supplement. And then there was gonna be another quarter of pay on top of that with the additional supplement. Yes,
Everyone's getting paid, it's just the amount of percentage of how much they're getting paid. of the
is,
contract.
will increase, if it's approved, and again, I don't have any problem with looking at it, it's just more of, you know, I feel one of our main responsibilities from a financial standpoint, and, you know, that's where those committees, I think, hold values to look at that, ask those questions, and, you know, have a little bit of data that says, hey, this is what we do, this is what other schools do, get the recommendation from the superintendent at that point and the treasurer, Dawn, to see what we should do, have that discussion, and then bring that to the board. I guess, has there been any, I know I previously asked as far as any other discussions after the fact regarding this with the AD or anything like that with the actual coaches on them coming to you and saying, hey, I'm really disappointed this happened. You know, we're not coaching if this doesn't fly or anything like that.
I've not heard from coaches.
You know, the difficult part for the financial one is that we have a negotiated agreement that we talked about that identifies what the supplemental contracts are. And these positions are not in that supplemental contract. It doesn't mean that the board cannot approve additional supplemental contracts based on the needs of the sport. But, you know, my hands get tied when I only have a certain amount of positions.
So can we make the formal request that we get this information and that we are able to actually have a vote on something?
My point here is the season is starting.
Doesn't mean we don't make it right partway through the season.
They're already coaching.
Yeah, I just, from my perspective, it should match up with what we have agreed upon or we get a clean recommendation. I mean, I don't think we're saying that we're not supportive of having additional coaches out there. We're just saying match it to what the contracts say and make it a clean recommendation. And then on a going forward basis, we'll expect the same, is that whether it's music, whether it's whatever supplemental position is, that they match up before we get the recommendation.
I agree with that. It's unfortunately maybe setting a precedence of going forward that we have got to have if we want to add supplementary positions on, it can't just show up on an agenda. There needs to be discussion ahead of time. And I was the acting president for that meeting, and when the agenda was shown to me and I saw it,
And knowing that no one had a conversation, there was no discussion about why we need two more supplementary positions, I think that's something that needs to be brought in going forward.
And there were some safety concerns expressed as far as why the AD needed these.
That discussion did happen with the AD and this, that is correct. That's where the recommendation came from.
Safety.
And I don't think anyone's debating the safety, and I agree too, there should be 2 adults on any away trip. And all the coaches are coaching, they're all getting some sort of a payment for what they're doing. My concern is going forward is that there has to be a procedure in order to bring about the request of having more positions added to, where we don't have that already into whatever was negotiated.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay. So I'm going to ask that we have a motion to rescind the resolution. The resolution to rescind the resolution number 22019. Discussion's over, so Dawn, if you'd like to. Okay.
So there's a lot of rescinding going on there, and I'm
There's just one.
confused on what I
There's
said.
just one rescind.
So we're
The
going to-
motion is to rescind resolution 2209. Okay, 019. That's,
Got it.
that's what's up, right?
Got it.
Okay, so now we're gonna call, if you want to rescind the resolution,
Which if you rescind it, that means
It's gone.
it's,
Which the resolution as it stands right now passes.
will pass if used,
If
if it is not rescinded.
Correct.
Okay, I got it.
It's a double negative.
Yes, that's what it's getting.
You ready for roll?
yes, please.
Okay, Mr. Fisher,
I vote to rescind, yes.
Mr. Lightfoot,
No.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Seabright,
Yes.
No. So that's 3
So that-
yeses and 2 noes.
so it's rescinded.
That means it's rescinded. Okay. So then we can revote. Is that what we do next on? Revote?
we have that option.
Okay. Do we want to revote for that again?
If we do nothing, what happens?
They have to bring back the
They
recommendation.
have to bring back a new recommendation.
Are we comfortable with not revoting, rescinding this? And
Someone wants to make a motion.
So I'll make the motion. No, that's the second, so. Sorry, I make a motion that we accept the superintendent's recommendation as reflectant of 22019. Which was to employ two supplemental contracts, one for baseball, one for softball.
I second that. So the motion is to approve superintendent's recommendation number 22-019, the supplemental contracts of the baseball and softball coaches. Discussion. All right.
Mine is still just reflectant of the fact that asking people to continue to donate their time is not something that we want to set precedent, because that's when people don't want to do anything. So that's the idea. Yes, I know they're getting paid. We are fielding a JV team, a full JV team for softball, which we have not done in the past. So that's the rationale. I agree 100%. They are getting paid, and I appreciate that, but being somebody that's volunteered understands that you can only do it for so long until the well runs dry. And I think from the safety standpoint, that's where I'm at.
So back to one of the questions that came up the last time is, do we know what they're gonna get paid, because it was a split of a split?
Yeah,
And we didn't have a salary attached to it.
and who is high versus where they stand in years of service, and
So to me, it's just not clean.
And also, and again, so the question still remains, so there was not 7 coaches on the left for softball, not 7 coaches for last year in the same agenda for last season. And you were saying that there was not a JV team last year for softball.
Is not for the full team for the full season.
There was not a JV.
There was not a JV team, so no JV scrimmages, no anything like that.
They did not,
They did do that, yes.
but it was not a.
Was there 7 coaches last year? For softball?
If there was a lot of volunteers, there's not that many.
So Don, if this motion passes, do you know what you're paying people?
No.
But I don't think that any of the other, at least what comes to before the board doesn't have an amount. It does,
I agree.
but
In my world, it should. So it should have, at the very least, years of service.
2 of these JV coaches are also already being paid as assistant coaches in softball. So theoretically, they are getting paid more than 2 of the other ones. And, you know, sometimes when you're for the love of the game, and I hate to say that, but I keep getting stuck at that we can't just throw out new contracts because there's a need without having any discussion or bringing it to the committees.
And I would like to just see something clean. Well, there's your discussion this morning.
I was gonna say, any other discussions around that?
Is there any way to find out what happened this time last year? I mean, obviously, we voted on it for the number of coaches and stuff like that at this time last year before proceeding to vote. As far as the number of coaches, were the same quantity with the same supplemental? Because I mean, that's the.
I got last year's.
Do you?
Yeah, so last year, there were 3 assistant coaches who all got 1/3 of the cut and 3 JV coaches that got 1/3 of the cut each.
So those are the 2 positions that are in the.
So
But
last year they
was there
worked,
any additional supplemental contract? As
no, it
far
was
as-
just, it would be, no, because they had the 2 extra, there's the softball head coach, and then we have an assistant coach and a JV coach, and 3 people split the assistant coach last year, and 3 people split the JV coach last year. So this precedent of splitting up the current was there last year, according to this agenda that I'm looking at here. So what we're doing this year and what was on the table for the positions is exactly what happened last year, except now they want to add 2
2 more,
positions.
2 more positions.
well,
One for baseball.
one for baseball, one for softball.
Right. Baseball had a head coach, an assistant coach, and then they had 2 people split the JV coach last year.
And
Which is what they have right now, is what they requested.
And again, I think I want to emphasize my point is the fact that it's not clean. We don't know what they're paying for. Nobody's brought, you know, official justification to us in any committee. We've had an opportunity to have and to have a athletic committee set up since the last 4 meetings. We had one, I believe, in January. It could have been brought up then. There is opportunity to bring those things up and properly explain them, have that, I mean, we do it in the facilities committee every month with bigger dollar items with this, and I think that's the appropriate way, not to just show up and say we want to add a couple more people without being here and having justification and being able to support that.
So would it be okay to set this meeting, have it very clean, since the people are volunteering right now? Really, you're talking about pay.
Mhm.
So we set this meeting up before the April board meeting. I've got the notes and we have it clean, how it would break out and come to the committee. We'll have a committee meeting before the next board meeting for sure. I'll send out the invite either tomorrow or
Absolutely, I'll be the first one to make a motion.
I will be happy to do that.
Okay, so the motion on the table right now is to approve superintendent's recommendation 22019. That's what's on the table right now. So we have to vote on that before we can have this one, right? Okay,
Is that just a superintendent's recommendation, or is that just a normal motion to the board?
what you want to do?
No, I'm asking is that a superintendent?
This is where I don't know how.
This is this is still a superintendent recommendation.
What's that?
It's still a
Yes, so-
superintendent's
okay.
recommendation, yes. So please call the roll. So what we're doing is we are voting now to approve superintendent's recommendation.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mr. Fisher,
No,
Mr. Lightfoot,
let's say yes.
Ms. Thomas,
No.
Ms. Ebright.
No.
Ms. Williams.
no. Okay, so motion to approve superintendent's recommendation fails. Now, Andy, what was your motion that you wanted to make?
I didn't, I said, or I was making a comment that if we have all of that, I'll be the first one to make a motion
Oh,
to.
okay, okay.
If it works out with everybody to reapprove
Good.
it, I'm just saying.
Let's move on. Good, okay, excellent. Okay, so next motion is approve board minutes for February 17th, 2022 and March 8th, 2022.
I'll make a motion on that, controversial.
second it. So it makes a motion, who seconded?
I'm taking
Laura, okay, thank you. So the motion on the table is to approve board minutes from February 17th and March 8th, 2022. And do we need to say that we're correcting the? Okay, never mind.
No, because it'll come here to this meeting to be corrected and we'll.
Excellent, okay. So that's the motion, discussion about that. Hopefully not. Okay, take the roll call, please.
Mr. Fisher.
Yes.
Mr. Lightfoot.
Yes.
Ms. Thomas. Yes. Ms. Ebright.
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Next is visitors' comments. I want to say before we open up to comments is that this board meeting was the last online comments that are going to be accepted. So if you have any questions or comments, you come to person, because that was during COVID and hopefully things have settled down. So we're not going to be doing online comments anymore. Any visitors that want to make comments?
I just want to make a quick comment about the whole supplemental thing. Wherever you stand or lie, whatever. But if we're going to change past practice, I don't feel like punishing the kids and the coaches that are volunteering is the right thing to do. If you want to set up a procedure on how to do these split contracts, I'm all for it. At least done at the last negotiation that the table of committee was supposed to be created or something else to fix for this contract. We're negotiating in a couple weeks and that committee was never solved through. So if we're going to fix things, I'm all for it, but not at the stake of the kids and the coaches that are paying their volunteering their time for.
Brian, what was that committee? I'm sorry, what was the committee that was supposed to be
At
started?
the last negotiations, supplementals have been a problem here forever, as is most schools. There was supposed to be a committee created to fix the supplemental contracts. And we've met a couple of times, but couldn't really come up with anything. Dawn and I have had a couple of conversations about it, but it's just, there's no easy way to put in language what a fall season is gonna look like, what a spring season is gonna look like to get the number of coaches and to do that until the kids show up that first week of practice, and you know how many kids you have. You know. That makes sense?
Yeah, but you should be able to develop an algorithm or a process around that. So,
I mean, I want to go back to your statement though, as far as the 1/3 or splitting it up. I don't think anybody's disagreeing with the fact that you can split it up however you want. It's the fact that in the negotiated contract, it says we'll have 1 head football coach. We'll have 4 assistant coach. And I'm just throwing numbers out, right?
But we have added positions in the past.
Okay, And when you say the past, are you talking, and again, I know.
Last school year.
Last school year, okay. Well, I'll be the first one to apologize that I must have missed it on that one. I'm looking at it from going in, sitting down, and I wish that those meetings would take place or whatever. But even if that's the case, have it brought to the committee, have committees, standing committees, every month that could have been brought to it. I've been on the athletic committee since January. We've had one meeting. We're all open to those discussions and have that. That's all from a board's perspective we're asking. And the first information I really got about numbers is from me turning around and asking you tonight. So if we're gonna hear, if we want to be here to support the kiddos, the coaches out there, which I agree with you, are making probably peanuts for what they're about to do, right? And I'll openly say that, then somebody should be here in a position advocating for them as well. So, and that advocation happens in those committees and that kind of stuff.
But that's new, the committees are new.
I've been on the facilities committee since whatever, the athletic committee, January, they met twice last year and could have had more. It's not new is my point. And if it was that big, then after the last board meeting, there's every opportunity to.
Wasn't it discussed at the last board meeting that you're gonna reach out to Justin and have that conversation?
No, I said we would have the committee. Somebody can come and bring it to the committee. But we have had, or I have talked to the superintendent about, let's talk about it, let's get after it, let's, do that kind of stuff. But that's where those committees take place and those need to be scheduled with the board. In my humble opinion, which they are, which.
I don't disagree with that. I think that's a great idea. That's not how it's been done in the past.
Okay.
And I've been assistant athletic director for 18, 19 years, for sure, and we've never had to go through a committee. We've recommended to the superintendent, we recommend to the board, and then we do whatever needs to be done.
Gotcha.
So it's a new procedure. I'm not against it, I'm just saying it's new. So
I appreciate.
that's why, I feel like that's why there's tension around this, because the coaches and the kids are the ones that are suffering because when I started the procedure.
And it sounds like the larger issue is the supplemental contract, so if
For
we
sure.
can get that figured out, then,
I'll gladly let you know.
yeah.
Well, I would love some past data. So if there's some past data that says, hey, this is what we've done in regards to supplemental contracts, and this is how we base that. I would love to see that and see if that had what had been recommended had followed past practice. Like, that's, I guess, all we're.
I guess Andy, in my perspective, it doesn't even matter. I
Okay.
mean, Cassie, do you want some more people? I mean,
More people?
yeah, I mean, like, I mean, that's the natural evolution, hey, there's more gifted kids this year. Hey, you got more second graders or whatever, I think from my perspective, it's a control to say, all right, softball seems to be the sport of the school right now, right? Like, I mean, that's a huge team. So,
Sorry if I want to step in and say something. My daughter's been a softball player for 4 years. Her first year as a freshman, they had 10 to 12 kids. The second year they had a little bit more. They got up to like 17. Last year, I think they were pushing 20. They pushed up to 23, 24. And this year they're close to 30. And it was very surprising this year when she came home and said, Dad, we've got 30 girls out for softball. She was really excited, but it's really hard to gauge, on those programs and those coaches, how many kids are going to show up and come out. It's awesome that they have 30. That dugout is full time,
which is
It's great to
exciting,
see.
yeah.
and it's just very difficult, like a program like softball, to gauge year after year after year where those numbers are going to go.
But I think I heard the same thing with track.
Yeah, we have 126 kids though, which is by far the most we've ever had.
So, I mean, I don't know what's going on, why all the kids have decided spring is the time to go out and play, but it sounds like everyone's kind of bouncing out to sports this summer.
There's more athletics.
So, yeah, maybe some kind of frustration. Absolutely. But I think,
Haven't competed.
yeah, we hear kind of like the directive is we're trying to stick with our budget. Anything that's new, we're trying to get into a process. So that's maybe not past
I get
practice.
that, but it's not new. I mean, we added, I'm pretty sure, now that I thought about it, soccer and basketball, we added coaches this year.
So,
This
all right.
year,
We'll
But
let them know.
I will speak of that, because since I did this agenda last night, when I saw it, and I went back and looked and saw that, when I saw that as board member before, so this was my ignorance, of not understanding things, I assumed that when those were presented, that we actually had contracts for those. When I get the agenda from from them, I assume as a board member that those positions that we were filling that were open contracts. I am now understanding that those were not necessarily open contracts, so that was my ignorance, that I should have, as a newer board member, asked, is this position that's being, I don't want to micromanage, I just want to assume that what I'm getting is what's available, because I did this agenda in February, I asked the question, are these open? And that's when I opened and found out, no, these are just new positions that we want to add. And me as a board member, yes, did we approve it before? Yes, and I voted yes for those times. Because under my assumption was that those were open contracts that we were filling. And so this is a new thing that's kind of popped up, but yes, past practice, we did just throw in new coaches when we needed them, added new contracts when we needed them. But what I'm saying is, we can't do that. And yes, we did it in the past, and I voted yes in the past. But that was because I assumed something that I shouldn't have assumed.
Okay, we're gonna move on. Okay, thanks Brian and Chris and Hansel and everyone who said something. Okay, so on to informative reports and communications. Elementary, middle, elementary. Mike, you're behind me.
Kenny's blocked me. I don't have anything to add to my report, with the exception of the very last bullet point was about kindergarten screening time, which is currently registration's happening. And as of when I left my office a little bit ago, we are at 70 kids signed up, which is by far the most we've had at this point for registration.
Really?
Usually I would say we have average around 55 to 60. We're at 70, and that we'll have some that will just show up. I guarantee it. So we've had to expand our spots by a couple in each block, and then we always have movement over the summer. So that's always good to see that growth.
Are these all district kids?
Yeah, these are only in district.
Oh, wow.
So this doesn't even factor any open enrollment. Yepers. Yepers, and we have people that are trying to register, and then we find out they're not registered.
So just for my benefit, when it comes to it, you normally try to have, what's your number when we're all said and done with accepting open enrollment? You normally like to have a number of 90
Of
ish, less than that. I mean, we're close to
75.
75, okay.
So, I mean, we're right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's good. I mean, we knew our district was growing and is growing, and with some subdivisions going in currently, both in town here. And I think, Mr. Shop, you're building more houses near you guys too, right? Aren't they?
Well, I'm not building.
They're being built.
They're coming.
I think we're gonna continue seeing this, so, yeah, but and then we've even had a couple people that signed up thinking they just could sign up, and we found out they're not in district, so we had to say, no, you have to go to your industry.
So
And do screening and then do the open enrollment process. So, yeah, the numbers are good.
as a board member, I just ask that the facilities committee take that under consideration, because you might be needing to find where you're going to put another class. I mean, truthfully, like, because if our district continues to grow, we have to take them. It's not, we don't take any open
No,
enrollment.
these are people that live here.
If you have another 20 kids that move into the district,
And we've had that in the summer months.
yeah, exactly.
Thus this year's fifth or fourth
Yeah.
grade class.
Then you're looking at,
Fifth grade class.
I don't want to say out of space, but you struggle a little bit with what you have. So I think facilities at least needs to take that under consideration, because I don't think that's on the short list of things to do this summer. Make a class, right?
It's not on our.
No. So,
Okay, can we take that as an action item for next Friday?
No.
No?
What it's gonna be is a very fun conversation with Mr. Newcomer. Who gets a room
Yeah.
and where you get shifted. And it's not uncommon for stuff like this to happen.
I would rather the facilities committee be at least having it on their radar for discussion, because there's not a room set up, there's not, at least to my knowledge in the elementary building, there's not another room set up for kindergarten, like. You can make it, but you're gonna have to make it, so it's gonna be a little bit of.
I do think though that we're not gonna have as many last minute signups because we've done a better job of communicating this to
Absolutely,
people. So I think that's gonna help too.
but still you're
Yeah.
teetering
I mean,
with,
it's-
with summer move-ins,
Yeah, so we can talk about it on Friday.
that's all, but
Awesome.
I would just.
Okay.
That's all I had. I don't know if there are any more questions you guys have for me.
Comments for Mike before
Well,
we
and on
sit
top
down?
of that, we have had early entrance kindergarten test.
Yeah.
So just to give you a heads up, we can't deny them either if they qualify. So
How many of those have we had?
3.
That was 3 now.
Three.
I will say 99% of those kids do not pass that.
I agree.
It's hard on purpose. Because they're not 5 by August
We're
1st.
not ready, yeah.
So.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Middle school?
I do
Oh,
have
yeah,
a
presentation.
presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I was just gonna pull it up.
It was right here underneath that,
Good.
yeah. Isn't it? Yeah.
Is that keyboard up there?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna speed this up since we've been.
We are,
So,
And you will see.
I did share this with all the board members.
Yeah, Mike shared it with you, so if you want to look at the videos and watch that stuff more, you can. So just a quick presentation on STEAM. I started it this year. Over the summer, I was excited, and then as it got closer, I got worried, but the 4 things we're focusing on is the engineering design process, problem-based learning, technology skills, and typing growth. As we go through, you'll see some things, but problem-based learning is basically real-world problems. You present the kids a problem, they create a solution for it. It's real simple terms for what it is. There's a lot more that goes into it, but we'll get over that later. And the design process, Cassie and I the first one, we're doing 2 different languages of it. So I got with her, and so now our language is the same, and what we, what it is, what we're doing. The process of it is now the same for K through 5, gifted or not gifted students. So, so STEAM is science, technology, engineering, agriculture, art, and math. My dad's a farmer, so with the agriculture part earlier on this fall, I took a bunch of videos of harvesting soybeans, and then I partnered with the Ohio Soybean Coalition, and I can't remember now, 3rd or 4th grade, got to do a virtual tour of a soybean processing plant outside of Columbus. So that was really cool. They got to see me, plant on the farm, and then the soybeans go in the wagon to the mill, and then on the semi to this processing plant where they show them everything that they do with the soybeans. And so that was really fun. Land lab, I don't know if you guys know about the land lab behind the elementary school. There's the woods back there with the rocky Ford Creek that runs through there. When I first started here, the high school science labs, they would go out there and do stuff, and it kind of got forgotten about. So this spring I went out there with a chainsaw and cut a path through it. It's about a half-mile path back there, it follows along the river, and get to show them different stuff. We brought the 3rd graders, did a leaf exploration where I had a bunch of pictures of leaves, and they got to compare the leaves they found, identify trees, and do that kind of stuff with it. It was fun. Snap circuits, this is something Cassie already had, so we have to buy those. The 4th graders did basically simple what electricity is, AC versus DC, why a battery doesn't shock you when you touch it, but yet you stick your finger in an outlet, you get electrocuted, talk about a lot of that stuff. And they got to play for 2 weeks with them. And then my main PPL for that was a sump pump. So your sump pump fails, water's rising, build an alarm that will go off and alert you. So you can see 2 of the projects they did to create that. This first one, they had lights and all kinds of songs and stuff to play. The other one, it just buzzed. So that was fun. Emperor penguins with the kindergartners. We read the book Emperor's Egg, and I don't know if you know this or not, but emperor penguins are huge, like 4-foot birds. The male emperor penguin puts the egg between its feet and just walks in a circle in Antarctica, and that's how they hatch their eggs. So the kindergartners had to design a way to hold the egg between their feet and walk around the room. The We Do Lego box, another thing I stole from Cassie. Basically, it's Legos that they put together. What's that?
Taking all the stuff.
That's right.
Someone needs to put this guy.
That's coming next quarter. But they build something out of Legos and then they code it, program it on the computer, and through Bluetooth, they give the directions to the machine, whatever it is, whatever they want it to do. One of the things we did do was a race where they built a race car and then had to program it to start and stop. That was kind of fun because they did the actual follow the instructions in the book, and then the next week threw that away, build your own car. You know how all this works. Build your own car, make it as fast as you can.
How'd that go?
How'd it go? Really good.
Like build your own? With no instructions?
Some kids struggled with it. The kids that are the more, they need the direction from point A to point B did really good the first weeks when the instructions were from them, and then building it blindly, just creating it. Those kids struggled, but the other kids excel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's always interesting to watch that kind of thing.
Structural strength, we did triangles versus squares using index cards. They had to build a structure that had to hold a crayon box. We discussed why triangles are stronger than squares and what the difference was. 100th day of school, they got 100 cups, and it was a competition to see who could build the tallest tower stacking cups. They all kind of followed each other's lead, and then once one person got taller, they, all right, we gotta build what they're building, and they just kind of followed each other around. Teaching students, so early on, talked a lot about digital citizenship, and 2 years ago, we gave all these kindergartens, first graders, second graders, here's a Chromebook, don't mess up. So we spent a lot of time early on talking about digital citizenship and responsibilities and what that happened if you accidentally click on something and it takes you to the wrong place. What do you just close it and hide? Do you talk to somebody about it? Talk about a lot of that kind of stuff with them. And had Mariah pull our Swiss data from PBIS, and our tech write-ups are in half this year now compared to past years. So typing. So that was one of the goals Cassie Schaefer and I talked about, was getting the kids not only to type more accurately, but to put their fingers in the right spot instead of doing this. So it's a free typing program we use. Back in October, the third graders were at 7 words a minute, just doing this. And now they all, I would say 95% of the kids kindergarten through 5th grade know where the home row is, how to find the F and J buttons, and then we're building off of that for the typing. But they're at 12 words per minute, and elementary wide, they're at 14 words a minute, kindergarten included, kindergarten through 5th grade. So I thought that was really good.
Do you still have the old hide your finger things and stuff like that? No?
Nope, just threaten them that we're.
Sit there with the yardstick.
And then grants, I'm not sure why it's not.
It's fine up there.
But I wrote a grant through Battelle, through the Ohio Learning Network, and then the PTO talked to me about a grant that Casey's, the gas station, was doing. So we worked together and got $10,000 towards makerspace for next year for all the playing stuff, some shelving, different things like that. And then Cassie wrote a grant to the Community Foundation for the Dash Robotics and for 2-3.
So you can't. Like here.
You're up.
Yeah, so the grants through the Community Foundation provides him next year with all of the Dash robotics plus a program where he can monitor the kids and progression. And that was $6,000, and then we did $6,000 for 2 3D printers. And put them on a cart and kind of share between the 2 of us for that. So, and I just want to say, everything in my classroom that he's borrowing, none of it the school has bought. So every single thing, when we do robotics, if you look at my back wall, it was completely, pretty much funded either by the Community Foundation or a sponsor that has sponsored our program. What buttons do you press?
Zero, right?
Okay.
Should we go out, go back in?
I don't even know. So this is the STEM club. So these are just some of the requirements for the Van Buren Elementary STEM Club. We have a few teachers that you can like that if you want to, if it works, goes through. So lesson plans, when they create the STEM Club lesson plans, they must be unique from their grade level curriculum. So it can't be something that's already being done at school. Has to be cross-curricular, has to be based on the design process we're using, which is ask, imagine, create, plan, test, and reevaluate and keep going. So it's just a cycle. So it has to be based on that design process. has to be hands-on and exploratory. And one of the things that I asked is that it's published on a Google site for parents to preview. So when parents sign up, I mean, they're paying $80 a kid, so I think that they should be able to see what they're signing up for. So the cool thing about it is we have had a ton of middle school and high school volunteers come over, so they're working with the kids after school, and they're getting their volunteer hours, and these are just some of the quotes. Those are some of the parent quotes that we've had. I love the first one. It was so wonderful to see my non-athletic child be so excited about an extracurricular activity. So it gives them a list that they're really enjoying. And it doesn't mean the athletic kids aren't there too, but I like to see that. So again, this is, that's finished. So this is completely self-funded. That's what's great about it. I did the pilot program last year. I did 2 sessions, had 32 students sign up. 40% of the registration fees goes back to the STEM fund. So hopefully that'll go into our classrooms. But the great thing about it is it's now providing scholarships for kids that can afford this. This last session, we had 2 kids. The only requirements we are asking that they are on free and reduced lunch, and then the teachers recommend them. Teachers call the parents, say, hey, we've got this great program for you. We really want your child to attend. And we had 2 this time. This year, we've had 9 sessions, 85 students attend. And then so far we're at 2,720. So with that cushion, we can easily invite more kids. I'd rather see more kids that can benefit from it. So that's where we're at with that. So these are some of the student quotes. And this is, I'll just play a little bit of this video. Oh, do we have sound? So you can watch it at home. But basically, they're telling you why they interest.
Oh, it hurts my brain.
Yeah.
In
So-
that way, that's cute.
And then the next one is it just.
Share it over.
It's not going off that video. How about
Yeah.
So this is, you can't see the top of it, but this is, these are just some of the classes. So I'm gonna go through them real quick. This is called Game Day for Dash and Volt. So I have a Dash, but I also have a Volt, which is the severe 360 robotic. Has a lot more sensors, does matrix and so forth, but they were playing basketball with it. We had a soccer match. Of course, we did golf because I had to teach them the golf game. And then today was free choice and they were just loving that. So they could go back to a project if they still needed to finish for the week. We've had first and second graders did where they created their own game, and this woman did Mission to Mars, and they were outside doing rockets today. So this was first and second grade Dash's sweet obstacle course, and that was Valentine's Day where they made obstacle courses with candy and had to code Dash to travel through it. So first the process of designing the maze, and then the process of actually coding the robot to go through it. These are the We Do robotics, again, where they're having different races with it and designing cars. We had a roller coaster in the library. They built their own roller coasters, learned a lot about kinetic and potential energy and gravitational pull. This was really fun. This is the severe robot, that's the ball, but they designed a cup to go over it, and then they had to create a battle bot. And at the end of the cup had a dowel rod with a needle on it, and they tried to pop each other's balloons. And there's some more snap circuits and doing the energy. So those are just a few of the classes that we've had to give you an idea of what STEM Club is. And parents have the choice usually of 2 to 3 classes. We're trying to have all grade levels first through 5th, so. Any questions about?
That is just awesome,
Mhm.
both of you,
Yeah, I think
congratulations, that's great.
So what's the best way to get stuff for the program? Like, I know you talked about grants. I mean, is there certain websites, certain other things, maybe stuff the board can do to help with that, or?
It's mainly grants that I found, but I will tell you, like, we've had businesses support it. You know, sometimes when I just go out and talk about what I do, a business will say, how can I help you? We've had a lot of great sponsors social pathways.
Gotcha.
And when we make those connections and field trips, I think that helps a lot.
For me this year, it was more figuring out, all right, what does this position look like? Like, I went to Cary and visited them a couple weeks ago during an alternate learning day. Got a bunch of ideas off of her and affirmed a lot of the stuff that we were doing. She was doing it there. It was nice to collaborate and talk back and forth and figure things out. She does things a little bit different, but with the same tools we have. But there's places out there. There's a ton of things out there to get into. It's just kind of, for me, you're finding out, where do I want to go with this program? What do I want it to look like to feed into middle school? So I'll be getting back to what we're about.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it is a big stretch trying to figure it out, because as he's doing things, I'm like, "Oh, you're taking that now, I'm gonna have to bump it up, you know, so it's kind of figuring out where we are with everything and what we're doing. So, but I think we're way ahead of the game. We actually had, like, the University of Finley director contact me of their MAS STEAM Institute, and they actually took a couple of mine to figure out what they wanted in their STEAM, so I think that's good too, that they're reaching out.
We're having a couple kids in the elementary, they rave about it, the STEAM class, and going outside, I heard all about that this week. And the STEM class, I know, it was a hesitation for my one to do it, and it's been a really great, building confidence of it, like the one kiddo said, he didn't like school or his brain, you know, I think that that is a great other opportunity, and I love the fact that you're gaining the money to be able to, and I think we talked about, being able to give those scholarships for the other kids to get in it too, so I think it's all heading in a great direction.
I definitely thank you guys for letting this team happen, because it's awesome for our kids to see.
Definitely worth it.
Find some great.
Keep it up.
Very flexible.
Yes, thank you guys
Thank
very,
you.
very much. Middle school, any report, Kevin? Do you have one from Jen? Okay, and then high school.
I have nothing to add to my report, but I do want to highlight the musical a little bit. As you know, it's taking place tonight. Our kids have been working their tails off. They did a preview on Wednesday morning for the elementary, which was really cool. And they did that brunch with Belle a couple Saturdays ago, which went really, really well. The kids were amazing. They weren't just there and dressed up, like they engaged with the little kids so well. Claire Herring, who's the lead, read a book to all the little kids. It was awesome. So anyway, a lot of kudos to our music department and what's going on this week. Other than that, nothing to add.
Any questions for Kevin? No. Okay, so we have a presentation now.
Yes.
Armory.
We'll try to speed this up a little bit too. I'm going to again introduce Kenzie, who I've introduced multiple times. But I think about this time last year, maybe a little earlier in the year, we talked about some course changes we were looking at. And the main thing we were preaching and going for, the purpose was bringing relevancy to our content, right? We're trying to improve the relevancy and make connections, real world connections for our kids. I'm also a huge believer in people over programs, and the people we have with us tonight are an absolute testament to that, because they're rock stars and they've taken these programs and made them kind of blow them out of the water. So with that said, I'll first introduce again Kenzie Stevenson, talking about our student store, that's the Armory. Okay, help me navigate this.
All right, to start us off, hi everybody, I'm Kenzie Stevenson. I'm like the manager / business owner, whatever you want to call me, of the Armory. I did help to develop it. To kind of give you a background on when I joined graphic arts my 8th grade year, so my last year of middle school. And when I joined it, it was a lot of just building the basics of the computer, learning how to work the programs to get your design from the computer screen to an actual t-shirt. And that was really 8th grade. And we didn't really have the idea of a store. It was kind of something that Mr. Daniels, I think, had always dreamed about, but it had never been brought up. But then I continued on with it. I really liked the class. So my freshman year, am I supposed to be clicking through these?
I can go.
Okay, cool. So my freshman year, Mr. Daniels did kind of sit me down, and we really did talk about, he expressed that he wanted to do a store. So we started to take it a little more seriously. We talked about the goals that we would have. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that like a big thing the high school had been working on is building real world experiences. So we really wanted to embrace that, and we wanted the students to become more independent. So then at the end of my freshman year, so last year around this time, I presented to several people that are here tonight And we asked for support. We discussed some of the goals that we had talked about, and they were on board. And then during this last summer, we actually sat down and we started to plan it out, and we started working on the store that a lot of you saw down there tonight. So then kind of now we do have a fully functioning student-led store. This has just been a great opportunity for people to get that real world experience. We've been able to just give so many students leadership positions. Even I'm so grateful for my leadership role in this. You know, I'm a sophomore, and I think I'm super grateful for the leadership opportunity that I've been given. And I know there's several other kids in this field that would say the exact same thing. This is our first year doing it. So with that being said, we have learned so many lessons. Our first one that we learned was just communication. In any business setting, communication is something that we needed to learn, and we needed to learn it fast. In the beginning, we weren't getting it quick enough, but we eventually got there, and now we're doing good. And then again, we like to express this a lot, but this is a high school, pretty much a project. Keeping it fun, keeping it light is something that we love to preach to the students. When it gets too serious, a lot of them tend to shut down, and I'm sure that many teachers that are here tend to see that. If things get too serious, students, especially in high school, just tend to shut down. So keeping it fun, we like to do pizza parties, hamburger Fridays, things like that to keep the students engaged. This is a dual credit class. So it is our applied business class and our graphic arts class. So we're getting 2 credits for this year. And we split them up at the beginning of the year based on their interests. And so we have this past start of the semester, we switched, and so now you're getting both credits. You're going to see both aspects of what it takes to run a store. And in the future, like I was talking earlier today, the building new designs is something that is really important to us. I talked to you about it, but we are high school students. We do like to stay trendy. So getting those new designs are something that we are working on every single day. In the store down there, I'm sure many of you were able to see the mural that is being worked on. So we are doing that. We're trying to get the art department involved in that way. We have, I don't want to give away too much, but we do have shelves going in the back, just some more storage and things like that. For more of our long-term goals, our spring sports are outdoors, and this was a big obstacle that we've had to, face head on in our first year. We wanted to follow the idea of how are we going to advertise it to parents and families outside. We're inside, and so it was kind of hard, an obstacle to kind of fuel the ideas of how we're going to take it from inside store to an outside store. So some of the ideas that we talked about in the beginning were just a trailer, car, a tent. Our design right now for it is to do a tent. So look out for that if you're going to any of the spring sports. And then I think just overall for the future, we're looking to just teach. This is a real world opportunity that has given many students, like I said, a leadership position. And just to kind of wrap it up, we are looking for more of the freshmen coming in with their new ideas and putting them in leadership positions. So, pretty much it. Is there any questions about that?
No questions, but super proud of you.
Thank
And all the
you.
other students involved as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
Okay, with that, I'm going to introduce Brian Brock. He's been continuing to serve as an English teacher, kind of the head of our English department, but also kind of doubling as a career advisor this year and many various roles that we're talking about.
So yeah, it's my 24th year at Vanguard teaching English, and this year working as a career advisor has been very fun, very challenging. We're trying a lot of new things this year, and hopefully continuing what they're starting in the elementary, continuing what Mr. Daniels, Mr. Heitkamp are doing, the application of how can I take what I'm learning in school, apply it to the working world, my future, so forth. So a few pictures here. Earlier this fall on November 17th, we had what I called a LinkedIn workshop where juniors and seniors created LinkedIn or had the opportunity to create LinkedIn profiles. And I then gave them a spreadsheet that contained the basically names of all of our graduates from 2000 to today. And if I was able to find those people on LinkedIn, identified what those people are doing, encourage students, if you know you want to become a stenographer, reach out to Kaylee Gilliland, Jake's wife. She's a sonographer, she's a Vanderbilt graduate, talk to her, ask her questions, learn about her career path, so that hopefully, if she made mistakes, you don't make the same mistakes. And if she has advice for you, you can take that advice. So I thought that was a good experience. In the future, that will hopefully become a junior year. Every year they will create that LinkedIn profile. So as we were presenting to various people in the community, we talked about the Hancock County Economic Development. They say that our schools are excellent, place a high priority on developing young people with the skills and attitudes today's successful companies need. And that's really something that I want to do. I want our students to be ready to go out into the working world. And one way for them to do that is to start getting some experiences. And again, whether that's talking to graduates, so forth. So if we go on to the next slide. So one of my purposes for what I'm doing is to connect current Van Buren students with graduates so they can learn. So I mentioned that a little bit. Already talked about the LinkedIn workshop. I do have a LinkedIn page that is titled Van Buren Schools Career Development and Advancement, where I basically hopefully promote what current graduates are doing so that hopefully current students see that and they can hopefully, again, feel the need or want to reach out to those people and develop their knowledge about careers. One of the stories that comes from that, Thomas Piccirillo graduated probably 4 or 5 years ago. And well, no, he's still in college, so 2 to 3 years ago. And he was a student at Mount Union, or is a student at Mount Union. I saw he had put something out on LinkedIn about, hey, I'm looking for an internship for this year. So I put that out on the Van Buren Development and Advancement page. Had a Van Buren graduate from the year 2000 who lives in Phoenix, Arizona, who had started his own business, reach out to Thomas and offer him an internship. And a week later, I find out that Thomas is working for him. It's beyond an internship. So that hasn't happened obviously for everyone, but just building those connections between people that have Van Buren as a common bond. Devin Thomas is a current senior. John Farling, who is a 2000 graduate as well. He has a self-storage business. Devin's interested in that, so he's been connected with John for that. Taylor Stewart is a senior. She's interested in going into social media marketing. She's been connected with Tori Bookwalder, who's a Van Buren graduate, who's now the social media manager for the Florida Panthers of the NHL. And she's been asking her questions and so forth. So hopefully this is the start of really building that community. I've also been interviewing people for the last year, Van Buren graduates, having them talk about their careers. Actually, Mr. Schaub suggested this as part of COVID, not being able to have speakers come in. Let's talk to them on Zoom, record that. So I think I've had probably around 20 to 25 interviews I've done with graduates. Those are posted. I share those with students, so forth. So hopefully our students can't walk out of here and say, I had no idea what anyone before me is doing, and I didn't have any connections, so forth. Hopefully we are building those connections. Second purpose I have, and again, one that Mr. Schaub has strongly encouraged, is giving students opportunities for career-focused experiences, whether that is a shadow day, whether that is an internship, so forth. So part of this is our sophomore portfolios is kind of the starting point for a lot of this, where English 10 this year is really focused on careers, and students are identifying 3 potential career pathways. Some of them are fighting me on the idea of having to create 3. They say, no, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I know this is going to happen, and don't make me identify 3. And I say, well, again, I hope it all turns out the way that you think it will, but from experience, myself and a lot of other people, it probably won't. So I think I'm getting some of those people on board as far as, all right, let's at least keep our options open. And I guess that's why I try to stress to students, it's great to have options. I always bring up dating with them. You know, if I'm stuck with only one person to date, I don't know if I love that. If I have 10 options, I like that a lot more. I have my pick. So, and they usually, yeah, they can relate to that. So this idea of let's just keep our options open, let's explore, let's see what's out there. Career Scoop newsletter is something that, again, I'm trying to get out to students. Now, I will say, I haven't put one out for March yet, and I don't think it's going to happen because I have so many other things going on, but just again, another way to make students aware of what is out there career-wise. Shadow days and internships. So sophomores take 2 shadow days. They just had one on March 1st. We have a Beyond BB internship program that Mr. Schauf and Mrs. Schaefer had created before I came along, but I am now continuing that. And we are trying to get students out into the workplace to actually do the work, whether it's unpaid or paid. And one way that we are managing that is through something called Transio, and I'll get to that a little bit more in a little bit, but Raise the Bar Hancock County is partnering with us, and they have covered some of the costs for Transio, which is a really nice platform to connect businesses with schools, connect students with businesses, and hopefully open up opportunities to them. And next slide. So on March 1st, I said we had our second sophomore shadow day. That was actually a career day across the district, except for freshmen. Juniors were taking the ACT. Seniors, they had 3 options. They could either job shadow, they could go for a college visit, or we had Sarah Tomlinson from Millstream come out and give some students some career assessments. So that's what the students are doing here. Part of that was on a computer, part of that was hands-on. These are all seniors. We had, I believe, 14 seniors who participated in the career assessments with the goal of figuring out what might best suit me when I leave high school. And Sarah has been doing a lot with these guys. We actually had 2 guys going to BS Brown in North Baltimore on Monday with her to see what career opportunities are there. And hopefully next year, we will be doing what the seniors did here in the spring. I'd really like to do that with them in the fall, so they have some more time then to plan and think about their post-high school lives. And next slide. So I've also had some really great opportunities to get out in the community and talk to some of them, and that's honestly, things just keep kind of bubbling up because of going out and making those connections. So February 1st, I was able to talk to the Chamber of Commerce at their Fresh Brew Business meeting and had made a lot of good contacts there, talking to the Findlay Rotary on the 14th. Had a lawyer, Jeff Fort from Findlay, came up, talked to us. We had a meeting then last week, Mr. Heitkamp, Mr. Fort, and myself, thinking about how could we implement some of these law skills and some of the knowledge that people might need running the school store. March 8th, Hancock Leadership visited Van Buren, and Devin Thomas and Taylor Stewart both talked to them, along with sophomore Janelle Sika about their career experiences. I've had visits with Reineke Ford, they're starting an apprenticeship internship program, trying to get some students involved with that. Talking with Puka, the president is a graduate of Van Buren. Students, we've had Grove come in to speak. We've had Raise the Bar apprenticeships come in and speak. DHC Hydraulics is going to be in next Friday to talk about career opportunities there. So just all of these things, we're trying to get students more aware of what their options are. All right, next slide. So Transio, it's been a little bit of a slog to get it up and running. There's supposedly going to be up and running October 1st. We had our 4th training this morning, still not completely up and running. I think it's going to be really good once we do get it up and running. Findlay City, Findlay Digital Academy, Millstream, Liberty Benton, Port Rawson, and Van Buren are all partnering together with this. We're getting businesses in. We found that we had a little bug and businesses were signing up, but we weren't seeing them in Transio. So after today's training, we got that figured out. The hope is that this is just going to provide more real world opportunities for students and help businesses and expose potential employees to those businesses. So shadow days, internships, hopefully getting more people into the school, going on workplace tours. The one I really love to see more of is providing those real world scenarios. If Marathon has a problem they've worked on and they've maybe already solved it, but let's get that problem with some high school kids at Van Buren, see how they solve that problem, and then have some other people come in, having career fairs. We have some kids going to a career fair at Millstream next Friday, the 25th. And yeah, we're just open to ideas, anything that will get the students applying what they're learning in classrooms is really important to us. And that's it, and I know that was a lot. So I guess any questions, any thoughts about anything else that we are doing? A lot.
Are the students enthusiastic about?
I think they are. I think I'm really starting to recognize, especially with seniors. You know, I'm talking to some people like, hey, let's go on these visits to see what your options are after high school. And I think it's making them realize I'm going to graduate in a few months and I have to find a way to support myself. And I think they're struggling a little bit to face that. But I hope that as we do this longer and longer, it just becomes more natural that kids are confident, hey, I've gone out and I've done an internship. I'm ready to go out into the world. So we do have currently 4 students doing internships. Now 2 of them are doing the MAT school with Cassie Schaefer. We have one at Berwick on Main Street in Findlay, and we have one with a speech pathologist over at Cary. And they are having really good experiences. The girl with the speech pathologist wasn't sure if she wanted that for a career. So through the internship, she's starting to see, you know, what does this really look like? And I think she's realizing, yes, I do want to do this. And Transio helps us manage all of that. They do weekly reflections on what they've experienced in the internship. So I think students are hesitating a little bit. They love the idea that, oh, maybe I could leave school. But then when they realize, oh man, I'm putting myself into the real world, some of them are hesitating. I hope that we will continue to encourage them to get them out there.
But I would say that, so I had an opportunity to come in and talk with Taylor and Rachel and Cassie, I think it was last week or whatever, and they're even promoting this. I'm looking at my notes here, Transio's on it, you know, we talked about, you know, businesses and internships and what they've affected in their internships and what they're doing, you know, here at Van Buren with, you know, doing some of the social media posts and working with the mayor Finley and her post and just doing some great things. So she wanted me to give a shout out that says we need more staff involvement on the career cast and or whatever she's asking. So if our staff can do that. She wanted me to bring that up. And you know, spoke very highly of all you guys and what you guys are doing. So we definitely really appreciate that and thank them for the time that they took that morning, because I guess they weren't even supposed to be here yet. So they had to come in early for that meeting. So definitely appreciate that. Great things are happening.
I'll piggyback on that a little bit. Obviously, Brian and Kinsey both, you know, doing amazing things in our building and for our kids and things, but the representation they have for us right now in the community, as you saw Brian's, you know, fresh brew and the Rotaries and things, like they're doing such a fantastic job representing this entire school and district and community. It's really fun and really impressive. We're really proud of it.
Yeah, I volunteered us to kind of lead the charge with some of the postings Taylor should have sent guys.
I already, I did that already, I got it.
And did you have, yeah, so my questions are more around, I know it's too early to start seeing results from this, but do we have data on what path our kids take post high school, how successful they are if they're in college, if they're taking CCP classes, how's that panning out, or you know, like, what kind of information do we really have about after behavior? Like real data, not anecdotal stories.
I do not have anything.
Yeah, no, I would say we're super early in the process. I know we used to do a survey thing in our English classes.
So, you know, that is one thing I would like to do, just again, with the whole LinkedIn and trying to keep that up to date. You know, when students are graduating, what are your plans so that I can have that information and hopefully stay in contact with them as much as possible. But yeah, I don't have anything currently as far as here's what these students have done. Now, yes, I think that is important to, you know, it's especially just, again, that idea that if there are better ways to serve students while they're still in high school to make them more successful after high school, you know, I think we need to obviously explore them.
Yeah, I'm just curious, you guys are putting a lot of time and energy into this, whether it translates into results and how you're measuring it.
Right.
So that's my key takeaway is, I really want to see us start focusing on the data of what are we measuring with our programs? If it's internships, is it connections made, something that shows the value of what the work is being done. So thank you, you guys are doing a lot of good work.
Anything else? Thank you so much. Thank you. DPEA highlights, right?
We got negotiations coming up right around the corner. Mr. Blue, you talk a little bit about the things, trying to get things organized for that. Hopefully, quick and easy and smooth.
One can hope, yes, we like that. Okay, teaching and learning report. Do you have anything there? No. Okay, anything out there? No? Oh, moving right along. Athletics? No. Technology report. Albert?
Other than what was my report, I just found out a couple of days ago, we had our door access systems being upgraded, and that is going to be done 29th and 30th of this month. So it hasn't been that long anyway, but it's just right, it's gonna be done. So for a couple of days, we're gonna have our doors will be out of commission. Talk to John, Justin about how to reroute. Like, we have to put in with one door in high school. Because we want to badge into all of the doors. So.
Special education report, or just not here. Gifted report, and anything other than that. And I wanted to just, again, thank you for all the grant writing that you do for this district. You've always done that and you continue to do it. So thank you very much. It's been helpful. Superintendent report.
Nothing to add, just wanted to thank everyone for their presentation tonight. I'm very excited to see where we go with everything as we move forward. And as always, Kenzie, what's your left? Good, she needs to go. She's been a rock star, which she's been out in the community and the other students when they've been up in front of these organizations. It's been super impressive to see our students. They're representing Van Buren exceptionally well.
You should sponsor like a pizza party or something. Dietz's is always good.
I mean, with Mr. Newcomer, it was 018 account.
All right.
Able to fund the school district.
Superintendent standing committee reports. We have personnel. Your
Meeting with the schedule.
okay, audit and finance.
You'll see the minutes were in the treasurer's report from the last meeting, nothing really too much to come out of that. So,
Okay, transportation and facilities.
We had a meeting on March 4th, discussed items moving forward as far as cafeteria roof, cafeteria floor, door strikes and access points, kind of what I was saying there. We discussed the status of the secure light project and also getting quotes for the water line boring and irrigation and well. Haven't heard back on one of those, but I'm assuming those will be presented to us next week. Another big ticket item is they were getting ideas, values for the basketball, the main high school basketball gym, as the floor is deteriorating in there. So that will be brought back to the committee. That's good for now.
And we're meeting on Friday.
We're meeting on Friday, more to come.
More to go. Athletics, we have not met. District and school policies. We need to schedule a meeting. Okay. Student achievement, and you'll notice there's a new one on here, legislative liaison, which I guess I'm going to be just because I'm a student achievement liaison, so I just kind of got that thrown in there too. But the reason, if any of you want to see this article from the OSBA, there's so many changes that happen related to schools that I thought it was important to have a legislative liaison, and Brian approved it, and so there you go. That's what we're doing. Okay, curriculum.
Let me hear you.
You.
Okay, so we did have a meeting with Cassie and some of the community members. A lot of what we talked about, you saw the presentation on when it comes to it. The other big focus that came out of that was towards the elementary and wonders, and Cassie made mention of it in her board report, is that like this will be a quarterly meeting is what the recommendation is. We're still trying to get a few more people from the community. One of the goals of this committee will just have a little bit more information into that prior to some of the decisions that's made here in the board when it comes to it. So we can make some recommendations. Good example, this is historical of the board, is what's on the agenda for tonight. So when it comes to the curriculum, items like that, and of course, work, the idea would be those obviously conversations happen now for next year, not now for, you know, what we're approving. So the idea is that will be things that we work on now, and then those conversations will happen over summer, and then Kevin will present, or the high school or middle school or elementary will present those changes. So it's a little bit ahead of time rather than what we get tonight. Mr. Shaw will probably tell you when that recommendation comes up that we're gonna start scheduling real soon. So if there's anything major on there, it's probably not. So that's the difference, and that's hopefully what comes out of this committee. So gotcha. But it's really a committee that right now it's looking at what we can get the biggest bang for the buck, which is starting in elementary and then going up in that regard. So big focus in elementary, then middle school and high school has some things that are working that we'll see, but not necessarily taking as much initiative right then and there. But then more things will happen probably next school year. So it's a good committee that's just starting to build. Awesome.
Thank you. I have a question, Dawn. Do you want to, do we do motion and then you discuss your things, or do you want to discuss your things and then do a motion to approve it?
Do you wanna, why don't we do the motion? And then I'll check.
Okay, good. So the next thing to talk about is treasurer's report financial items A, and that's 1 through 6. So if someone would like to make a motion. In a second.
I can second.
So the motion on the table is for us to approve treasurer's report financial items number 1 through 6 of discussion.
So there's just a few things that I want to bring to your attention. I actually put a couple of handouts at your place. But financial items for the close of February, our revenues right now are trending upward. Expenses right now are trending upward as well. Expenses are not exceeding the revenue trends, which is good news. That's partially due to the increase in taxes and school district income tax. Although the school district income tax is trending lower than we had originally anticipated. So we'll keep an eye on that for the April payment, and I'll give you another update when we get to April. We are watching the expenses pretty closely right now. Supply chain issues have been a real problem. Increases and also increases in fringe benefits. So we're watching some of those items as we move through the year. The audit is essentially complete. We're still wrestling over a couple of items that I will keep you posted on as we work through that process. Everything should be completed and the audit itself finalized with a file sent to the state no later than the end of March. So once we get to that point, hopefully I'll have a draft audit for your review at the April meeting. So that's the timeline for that. But I am thrilled that they're no longer squatting in our conference room. So we have moved them out of the building, which is good sign. The first handout that I want to talk to you about is this one. Excuse the small print. This is actually referencing, I don't even know what the item number is. 6. Item number 6.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So we had an insurance consortium meeting just after the beginning of March. So the medical consortium is currently struggling. the best way that I can put this. There was a sizable balance. What was it, Brian, over 4 million, like 4 years ago?
4 years ago, $4 million plus.
And now there's none.
Negative, it looks like.
It is. So what they're asking of us is to pay an additional monthly payment to cover the outstanding liabilities. Some of the liabilities are expenses of the consortium itself. Some of the liabilities are attached to insurance coverage.
It's the largest share.
That is a great question. So,
Well, the answer is because of the amount of people that is on the plan that represents somebody.
Yeah.
So we have more employees taking benefit of the insurance.
Correct. So what they're asking us for is, and what was voted on by the consortium is for us to pay an additional almost $145,000 and wire that to the medical consortium. I did not want to affect that wire until I at least discussed where we're at with the medical consortium with all of you.
What is the plan? Like, if it's gone from 4 million down to a negative balance in 4 years, it doesn't sound like a sustainable option.
Correct.
So
And
then,
I would say that this is probably not going to be the last request that they make.
This year.
so are we?
In my
Is this a
estimation.
request or a must? And what,
Probably a must.
It's a must.
It's a must at this point.
okay,
Because we won't be, I don't feel that you penalize people who work in the district
We
because of
utilize
this.
our employees.
Because then their claims wouldn't be funded, the ones that are in the pipeline right now, without this additional.
But going forward,
What we'll probably be facing is an additional increase.
So we have a self-funded insurance plan here. And when does the contract, is this contract one that we renew? Am I getting into the weeds?
We entered
No.
into this contract in 1993.
Okay.
And so
It's just
Don,
automatically.
this
renewed?
is something we've talked about before, that the superintendents sit down and discuss this with no treasurer oversight.
Correct.
So what is the plan?
So Brian and I are exploring other options for us. Brian has had conversations with both of the union leadership, so they're aware of where we're at and what's happening. So when you're part of a medical consortium like this, the reason that you don't leave a consortium is because you would leave money on the table.
I say we can have that on the table.
yeah, I was gonna say, that doesn't look like it's an issue right now.
Correct. So the point that we're at now, that's not an issue. So we are exploring options with other Hancock County districts. And we're hoping that the power of the number of employees that we have to bring will make us a favorable option for one of the largest medical consortiums in the state of
Do
Ohio.
we have to use a consortium?
We don't, but it reduces our risk and it reduces the amount that we would have to pay. So they actually insure, I'm not gonna be able to come up with that number. It's tens of thousands of lives across the state.
So my question is who do we have professionally assisting us and advising us on this option?
So you know the folks that I brought in that helped us with the life insurance renewal. They're actually helping us with opening conversations with Jefferson Healthcare. And we're going to see where we would be and how favorable of an option that'll be for us. So we're still exploring it all. But we're also doing it with some urgency. So we're meeting with our current insurance consultant tomorrow. And we're going to have some very candid discussion with them as to what we're actually looking at. And we're hoping if if we move forward with this option, we'll also be bringing a better level of coverage to our employees by having a real dental plan and having a real vision plan. And we would still pay less money than what we're paying.
So what
So-
about increasing the responsibility of the employee in the plans?
That would be something that we would have to discuss during negotiation.
What is it now? Like
90-10, 90-10.
90-10? Gotcha.
Was it 85-15?
70-30.
I'll start negotiating.
Is it just like a regular PPO? Is it high deductible? Is it, I guess.
We do have a high deductible option, but we only have just a few people that have taken advantage of that.
Okay,
You know, that is a savings, that plan is a savings for the district.
sure.
But it's, and then the board actually pays 100% of vision and dental.
Probably for further discussion, I deal with insurance companies, medical insurance companies daily, and I have other questions that, you know, why we're doing self-funded versus another option and all of those kind of questions, so maybe that's probably. Right, I know we inherited that one, but going forward
We did.
is something that I would like to I'd like to put in my insight that I have with dealing with these different insurance companies too. Not tonight, but going forward.
Okay, Don, I'm gonna request that we get a formal recommendation back on this. I mean, this is a lot of money. And I wanna know what options were explored.
Good, I guess I agree with that, and I have no problem with it, because we can continue to kick this down the road, but no matter what, the way contracts are, the way we are providing insurance for our people, they've already signed up for this year.
Oh, yeah.
So we have to pay
You
this
mean
amount.
we're going forward.
Yeah,
mean the
but-
pay-
Yeah,
You
no.
have to pay that, yeah.
No, we have to pay
Right.
the,
Okay.
But I'm saying I don't wanna keep this another year.
no, that's
Yes.
great, but the motion on the table is to pay
Right.
the 144 to keep what we have going through this year.
Absolutely.
Okay, no, I just want to make sure that you weren't saying,
So
Yeah.
Kim, you're asking for some kind of formal documentation as far as the process moving forward, what our options are.
Yes.
Clear? Okay, all right.
Yep.
Okay,
And so as we receive additional information, so I think that the meeting that we have set up for tomorrow will be very telling. And then we'll bring our insurance folks back in and we'll have a formal proposal, I'm sure, for them. And then we'll speak with the union folks and then we'll make a decision as to what we believe is the best recommendation for us moving forward and for our employees.
so
So
that,
that will come back to you.
that was, my question is, this amount, is there any guarantee that this amount that we're putting on the table at 144,935 is all that we need to cover this year?
No, because they're
So-
self-funded.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought. So very easily in November, you could come, even though we're gonna be out of this, potentially, let's say we go with somebody else, it won't take effect until the next calendar year. So we would still be on the hook for an October or November payment to cover the difference for our current pipeline.
We're actually hoping that the effective date will
Go backwards,
be sooner than that.
really?
Sooner than November. There are some insurance companies that do.
We're
but
hoping
not in January.
That that everything falls into place and that we're.
I just didn't know when for our people.
It's
Insurance.
super early in this process
Correct.
because of this request
Okay,
and the people that have come in. And I think it is important to have the input and it's super important for both unions to be there when these issues are being discussed.
Correct.
So we can get feedback from every angle with it.
Well, what, just for clarification, Michael, is insurance benefit as negotiating a contract, it's probably negotiated at a certain level, maybe not with a company or anything like that, is that my understanding? Or is this something that's gonna have to be hashed out prior to contract negotiations so that it's reflected in it?
We can do
Depends
an
on-
MOU and contract. We're wasting $150,000, it's not wasting.
Well, because that's what
Well,
I was
that's
gonna
how you
say, is
feel.
the 150 has to come from somewhere else in the budget.
Correct.
So we can't just keep
Right.
adding on, so.
Well, and the thing that's important to talk about when it comes to this 145,000 is the fact that normally when we make a $145,000 payment, there's a portion of that that comes out of the employee's pocket. This will be completely board paid. To keep them moving forward and be able to pay the claims. And we can't. We have a lot of options right now to leave our folks hanging.
No, I agree, we don't do that. Yeah. And medical expenses are gonna continue to go up, so I'll have to figure that piece out.
Review the rest of your recommendations.
Yes, the next item that I have passed out to you is, the graph about board of revision. The first, what do you approve for? The first 6 items, I have actually authorized, filing claims on all of those, on the district's behalf, because of the sizable amount of the change between those sales and what the auditor's valuation is on those properties. Keep in mind that we do not file on residential properties on behalf of the district, so let me make sure you know that. The last 2 businesses on the bottom of the list that are crossed out, there is a conflict of interest between the legal group and they have basically are walking away from filing a claim on those, and I wanted to know whether or not you wanted me to explore other options to file claims for those.
I have a conflict of interest with the further discussion of this.
Yeah, with the bottom one.
Yeah. So I can't participate in that discussion.
So if you want me to leave those where they're at, that is absolutely fine with me. I just wanted to make sure you knew that the reason we weren't filing on either of those.
I mean, what would it take outside of conflicts? I mean, because I would have a hard time justifying, the substantial difference in dollar amount that's listed there, but we're looking at filing up the other ones. If I'm reading this correctly, am I correct on that? That essentially you're filing because the auditor values the last one. I'm only using the last one as an example because that's easy for me to identify on the sheet.
Yeah, a lot of
Is
those other
11.
ones in the center, we actually have active agreements with those folks that they're actually doing direct payments to the school district. We won't refile on them because of that.
Okay, the last 2, we don't have anything with,
No, that's correct.
and also I'll speak to the second to the last one then. There's a huge difference that we're filing on the other ones as similar up at the top. Yeah, it's a consistency basis, but I don't know how hard it is to use a different firm.
So I have the ability to reach out to Jennifer, our current legal, to see if there is an interest and whether or not they could file something before the end of March.
Does there need to be a separate motion or anything like that regarding it?
I think just some direction from the board is fine with me, if you want me to pursue that or not. I don't think there necessarily needs to be a motion to do so.
I think for the consistency, if we're doing it with the other ones, consistency. I agree.
I need to have my conflict noted in the minutes though, and that I did not participate in any discussion related to it.
And for the last one, right?
No, for the whole discussion.
Whole discussion.
I have noted that. The other item, a couple of housekeeping things. You have a resolution, accepting the amounts and rates determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor for fiscal year 23. And this is the resolution that comes out of the submission of the tax budget based on our specific needs. And then there's a copy of the 5-year forecast that goes with that. So if we approve that resolution, we'll sign off and send it back to the auditor this week. And then they'll be able to put those tax rates in place. We already talked about the November Finance Committee meeting. They were actually approved at the last Finance and Audit Committee.
I have a question on that. I mean, I guess, what are we approving since it's coming out of superintendent's committee? And is there other committees that should be submitting to the board for approval? Or I guess what are we approving?
The rationale is, so the minutes were presented just like any other minutes for your review. This was a recommendation that came from the auditors. They
Okay,
just like to see that the board reviewed the minutes of some sort of oversight. It does not need to be done. It's just makes it easier to check a box when the auditors come in.
okay, that's fair.
And they asked for all the sets of minutes from the fiscal year that's being audited. So they want to make sure that somebody besides me is looking at the finance.
Gotcha. I just want to make sure there wasn't a slippery slope to bring it to the board and.
Yep.
All of that.
No, that's really the case. So I'll speak on Melinda's behalf because she asked me about it. So if you are the board president, you get a email from the auditor asking questions. And one of the questions is there oversight of your treasurer? And the response that we normally give is there's a committee that has both community members. Minutes are reviewed and approved likewise. So this was something that got put in. That was like the only real committee that was functioning out of the superintendent's committee. That was because of an audit finding several years ago, and it just kind of continued on that course. So I don't think you have to do anything from other ones. This is just honestly to make the audit a little easier because you just present it and then they move on. I don't even know if they read them, do they?
Yeah, they do.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna say, there's a lot of grammar stuff in there.
They asked for it, but I quickly read it.
Okay, anything else?
Just the Midwest Regional ESC Vision Impaired Services. Those are special ed kiddos that need the additional help. And we contract with Midwest Regional ESC to provide those services for them. And that's it.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments, discussion? Okay, so the motion on the table is to approve treasurer's report / financial items number 1 through 6. Would you like to call the roll, please?
Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Lightfoot?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Abstain.
Ms. Bright?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes. Motion passes. Under B, superintendent's recommendation, let me see if I can do this. We have a request to separate pull-out number 3, which is employee personnel for 2022-2023 school year as follows: football head coach Chris Henry, and to pull out number 4, approve Marty Zender as a retiree hire for 1 year as a middle and high school guidance counselor effective 2022-2023 school year. We already approved that. We're doing that in the beginning. Okay.
I'll make the motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation 1, 2, 5 through 9.
Thank you, Andy.
Yep.
Second. I'll second. Second. Okay, discussion.
All right, with the ones we're talking about right now, we do have another substitute bus aide on here. I'd also like to thank Mr. Schaup for number 2. We got a lot of feedback and the graduation date has changed. Also, along with Mr. Schaup, when you jump over, you're going to see number 7 is the course description guide, which is ready for approval tonight as well. Also joining the Ohio High School Athletic Association again, which is a yearly approval. Also, unfortunately, we do have some resignations up there, and Natalie Kincaid, a high school English teacher who is a phenomenal educator. Also, Mercedes Pitney, who was a bus driver for us. She is moving on with some other aspects of her career. And we'll be talking about Mr. Zender here soon. Also, number 9, I'd like to thank Mrs. Bunn for helping to do this in her arena. And we are going to have 3 teachers for extended school year services for 3 elementary students this summer who need additional instruction. So those are the discussion items that are being presented for approval.
Questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none, okay. Motion on the table is to approve superintendent's recommendations number 1, 2, and 5 through 9. Would you like to call the roll, please, Donna?
Mr. Fisher.
Yes.
Mr. Lightfoot.
Yes.
Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. Sebright.
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes. Okay, so then we're going to discuss number 3, employee personnel for football head coach, Chris Henry. Okay. Motion. Anyone?
Are we doing these together or separate?
So are we doing a separate? It's up to Mike. You want a separate?
Separate is whatever.
Separate, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so motion on the table is to employ personnel for 2022-2023 school year as follows: football head coach Chris Henry.
I second it.
Okay. Discussion. All right, would you like to call the roll?
Mr. Fisher.
Yes.
Mr. Lightfoot.
Abstain.
Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. Sebright.
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes. And congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, number 4, motion to approve Marty Zender as rehire for 1 year as middle school, high school guidance counselor effective 2022-2023 school year. Anybody? Need to motion that?
I'll make the motion.
So I'll second it. Okay. Discussion?
So my only thing with that is just from this board member, it's the concept. I'm not a fan of retire, so that's all. No issues with the position. That's the reason and rationale, so.
Are there other options?
He could stay like he's currently doing.
Yeah, so the retirement that we kind of voted on 5 was contingent on what happens with 4. So if 4 would get voted down, if you read his request, it says it's contingent on that we're rehiring him. So if not, he would stay on staff and at his current salary, so.
Is there a cost benefit to the school for this? And
It's saying except approximately 37,000.
is there any negatives or like that are standout negatives, like we should not do this from your guys' perspective?
From my perspective, in talking with Mr. Zender, who's been nothing but upfront during this whole process and has been very transparent and is willing to have an evaluation after the first year to see how things are going, and talking with Mr. Shaw, he is comfortable with the situation. I don't mean to speak for you, but and Mr. Zender is comfortable with the position with this situation. So I don't see any negatives to this at all.
I guess, do you see a negative in your past experience, Mike? I mean.
No, once again, it's a
Well,
concept.
okay.
Retire, rehire is what, in my world, you're either done or you're not. And that's where it's coming from. It's something that happens all the time. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just letting you know that if you go back and look at, since I've been on the board, retire and hire, I've always voted no. I'm not changing.
No, I'm just asking.
So there's nothing, I mean, yes, it's beneficial to the district from a financial standpoint.
Sure.
It's not, it's just the concept when it comes to it in like.
I appreciate
positions, yeah,
for sure.
So.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns? Laura? You have something I can tell.
I always have something. I will say this is a hard vote for me because I do agree, I have issues with retire, rehire. A hard part for me is I don't know the service he gives us. You know, one point is saving money, yes. Is he a rock star at his job? Are we allowing, you know, I don't know. I've not had interactions with him, so I don't know. That is my hesitation on this going forward is, I think it's great to save them. It seems like he's very altruistic to save our, you know, school district money. But is he doing the work for it? And I don't know, so this is a hard vote for me. But that's kind of where I look at retire, rehire. It's for rock stars. It's for people that, you know, hey, I understand there's also some retirement benefits to that for teachers. You know, my mom was in the system. I've known people in the system. I know the benefits that you can have. And I like to use that as something to reward someone that, you know, to have the benefit of a retire, rehire because we know you've been a great asset to our, and I don't know that, so I just want to say that going forward, so future votes, that this is something I'll have to look more into with the individual who wants to do this.
Couple questions on that, thank you. So are we rehiring him at the same salary that he's currently at? Would he work the next year regardless, based off his performance at his current salary if we did not do this?
Would he stay in?
Yeah, stay in
Yes,
the current
he'd stay in his
position,
current
sir.
position,
Okay.
yes.
Has he had a negative review in the last couple of years? Or
Since I've been here.
Laura said, is he a rock star? I'll throw it out there. Or would you consider, I know, I'm putting you guys on the
Yeah, I
spot,
mean,
but-
am I able to speak from the back row? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll vouch for him. He's great at what he does. I would also argue throughout the pandemic and just the changes of the last 3 or 4 years, there's really been nothing more impacted than a counselor. The graduation requirements change every year. He rolls with the punches, make sure our kids are prepared. I personally have challenged him to do some new things regarding the scheduling process, and he rises every time. So I have 0 complaints, 0 concerns. His evaluations are solid. And beyond that, he's amazing for kids. He's helped us on driving buses. He fills in as a sub. He goes on trips. He does it all.
So I'm caution right here.
Yeah.
If we continue anymore talking about evaluations, I strongly wish to go into executive session.
Sure.
So we.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So I mean, we can, I have no problem with that. I'm just.
Any other discussion?
Sure.
Okay, no more discussion. So the motion on the table is to approve Martin Zender as retiree hire for 2022-2023. Dawn, please call the roll.
Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Lightfoot?
No.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Sebright?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes, motion passes. Okay, all right, next executive session, and as far as I understand, we are not doing any voting, so don't feel like you need to stick around unless you want to, which I doubt you do. Okay, so I need a motion for us going into executive.
I motion it.
Laura,
I'll second.
Mike, okay, and the motion is to move into executive session to discuss employment and compensation of an employee or public official for Ohio Revised Code 121.22 G1. Okay. Call the roll, thank you.
Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Lightfoot?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Sebright?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes, can someone tell me what time it is?
I have it. 52.
Thank you, 8:52. All right. Thank you guys for attending. Yeah, you have to go to the bathroom.
No, I should have tried to get that.
So that's okay. You know what? Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you talking about me? Yeah, I just don't even know. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
Good.
Quick question for you. We send a thanks letter to you.
Come home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, we do too.
Robert, thank you, your godsend for hanging out.
Yeah, all right.
Do you wanna go to head more tech skills? We will take care of it.
Out.
9:49.
All right.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Are we back on?
Andy is
I'll
one,
second.
and Mike is second, and then I need to text this to Dawn.
Okay.
Unanimous?
Yeah.
On the roll.
Oh, yeah.
Let Brian know we all went home.
What's that?
Okay, let Brian,
Right.
Oh, yeah, he's a
Run
one.
down and see
Right.
the seatbelt there. Come on.
Still